everything to do with the Rolls Royce. One of them turned to the other and says, we've got to do something about that bloody clock. When they got to their desk, they would find one of these and a handwritten note from David Ogilvy. How do you onboard your people? A way that had a daily visual reminder to everybody. What do Russian nesting dolls have to do with leadership? Hi there. So David Ogilvy was the legendary father of advertising. Few names are as synonymous with advertising excellence as his. And you're probably wondering why we have this Matryoshka doll here with us today. Okay, well, I'm going to explain all of that to you. So here's our Matryoshka doll, or our nesting Russian dolls. So before we unpack this, in more ways than one, I'll explain to you what this has all got to do with David Ogilvy, what it's got to do with leadership, what it's got to do with us, and what it's got to do with you. So I'll tell you about this doll in 1 second. I'll just let you know that she was stood there very proudly. She was resting on some of our favorite books. This is a brand new book from Malcolm Gladwell. You probably read Tipping Point. This is Beware, a revenge of the tipping point. Love that. Mark II, The Revenge. Signed by the author as well, so especially close to my heart. Tipping Point was one of my favorite books ever, so I'm looking forward to reading that. We also have Strength-Based Leadership by Don Clifton, very good book. We have this one here. I've not read it, My Daily Leadership by Antonio Garrido. It's got good things said about it. Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. Anything by Darren Hardy, you know it's got to be good. And then The 9 Types of Leader by James Ashton. So she was sat very happily on top of those books. I'll move them over here and then we'll start our conversation. Okay, so she's here with me, I promise. Let's turn around to the front. Okay, so let's think about this lady over the next 10 or 20 minutes or so, I guess. I just thought I'd also say a shout out to my friend Charles, who came back from Russia, I promise, Moscow, yesterday, bringing this with him so that we could share it with you and talk about it today. If you have a Zoom, you'll see at the bottom that was bought genuinely in Moscow the day before yesterday, a Matryoshka doll. Okay, so she can stay here whilst we talk about her, and then we'll see what that's got to do with the weather and the price of fish. So as the founder of Ogilvy and Mather, David Ogilvy, he genuinely kind of revolutionized the advertising industry with campaigns that told stories. That was kind of their shtick, their thing. And they built super duper iconic brands that have stood the test of time, even today. So Ogilvy, advertising, marketing, and leadership genius. And he left a lasting legacy of creativity, strategy, leadership that still applies to this day. Okay, one day Ogilvy shared his personal, powerful leadership philosophy to his team through a set of Russian nesting dolls, not unlike this little lady here. Not exactly this one, because this one's mine, but I'll tell you how in a minute. So you're probably wondering, what do Russian nesting dolls have to do with leadership? Well, more than you think. I'm hoping you're curious. I hope so. Please stick with us. It is good. So I'm about to share a powerful leadership lesson in a way that Ogilvy himself would have approved. And I'm going to do that by telling you a story. So that's why we put this episode together, to help you draw lessons from the leadership greats and finally stop managing and start leading. And start creating a culture that brings about lasting results for you and your organization. Welcome to Stop Managing and Start Leading, the podcast for leaders who need to stop managing and for the managers who really want to start leading. I'm your host, Antonio Garrido, the founder and president of My Daily Leadership. I'm a serial entrepreneur, I'm a business founder, and I'm a leader just like you. I'm also a 3 times author, and I have led businesses from ground level startups all the way to big ones, Fortune 60s with billions in revenue and thousands of employees. And really, honestly, the secret to exceptional leadership is easier and closer than you think. You just got to get kind of the right mindsets and attitudes and beliefs and behaviors. And every leader and every manager has the potential to become exceptional. It's the kind of leader that they, their people, and their business deserve. And you, my friend, are no exception. It's all about getting your head and habits in the right place, and that's where we come in. Okay, so today's dish of the day, in case you're wondering, is the subscribe button. It's chef's favorite, so please do subscribe to My Daily Leadership YouTube channel for actionable insights and practical tools in our podcast episodes that drop every week. And if you're listening on a podcast platform, we're serving up something special for you. It's the follow buttons, and both of those buttons will help you level up your leadership. So please do it now. Before I tell you this story, I just want to tell you another one. It's probably my second favorite story, another true story about Ogilvy and Rolls-Royce. In 1958, David Ogilvy's advertising agency was asked to pitch for putting together a creative ad campaign for the new Rolls-Royce Silver Cloud. Okay, so what they did, Rolls-Royce, because they were very, very proud of their new Silver Cloud, because they put it together for every new car that they designed, like the specification for the Silver Cloud. I don't know how thick it was. Let's pretend it was like this thick. It was an enormous weighty tome, the kind of thing that if it dropped on your foot, you'd have to go to A&E, accident and emergency. And it was everything to do with the Rolls-Royce. From where did they source the bird's eye maple, right, in the dash? How did they, to what precision did they mill the turning knob on the gear stick? All of that kind of good stuff. The torque, the pound foot ratios, the 0 to 60, and all of the technical specs for the Rolls-Royce were held within this massive weighty document. And they gave it to Ogilvy and said, here's all you need to know about the new Rolls-Royce Silver Cloud. This is everything that is existing in this car is in this document. If it's not in this document, it doesn't exist. So use that and come up with a great advertising slogan, advertising campaign for us. Ogilvy, however, said, yeah, that's great, but just give us a car. Give us a car for a few weeks. And they said, no, we don't give cars to the people that are pitching, right, for our ad campaigns. We give you this, which is this document. And Ogilvy said, give me a car or we're not going to do it. So anyway, very begrudgingly, they gave them a car, the Rolls-Royce Silver Cloud, to drive around in for a couple of weeks. Car ads up to this point were all about how 0 to 60, torque, all of that kind of stuff, right? It was all about pounds per square foot and the stuff that they talk about in nerd car magazines, I suppose. But Ogilvy knew that the guy that was buying a Rolls-Royce Silver Cloud would never ever be changing spark plugs in the Rolls-Royce, right? They would never be concerned about all of the things that were held in this weighty tome, because the chauffeur would be doing all of that stuff, right? The chauffeur would be cleaning the plugs, and the chauffeur would be replacing the water in the liquid bottle, however many litres that was, right? That really wasn't the Rolls-Royce Silver Cloud customer. And if you think about it, even today they figured that out, because they don't... when was the last time you saw an ad for a Rolls-Royce? You don't see that many ads for Rolls-Royces, do you? Where do they sell Rolls-Royces? Well, they actually sell Rolls-Royces at air shows and at boat shows, right? So that's where they turn up with the Rolls-Royces these days, right? So that when somebody's had a look at a new $30 million yacht or $100 million jet, right? And then they step off the $100 million jet, $50 million jet, and walk past the Rolls Royce. That's almost an impulse buy, right? Even though they're like millions of pounds, you get the idea, right? But in those days, they advertised Rolls Royce like every other car. Talked all about things like torque. Anyway, they had this car for a week, and all of the Rolls Royce execs were sat around the board table ready for this pitch by Ogilvy. And what Ogilvy did, and you can Google this, it's great. What Ogilvy did was he had an image of the Silver Cloud in not in silhouette, in silhouette, the side image of the car, and the headline said, there was just one headline, and the headline said only this: at 60 miles an hour, the loudest thing you hear is the electric clock, right? And basically what they were talking about was the experience to drive the car. When you're rather in the car, the loudest thing that you hear comes from the electric clock at the front. And of course, electric clocks are tiny little tick, 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 right? Tiny noise. They make hardly any noise. And that became kind of iconic. Obviously, they got the gig, right? But the funny thing is, well, first of all, to realize that what Ogilvy did was he recognized that the person that was going to actually buy the car and be chauffeured around in the car, what they wanted was sanctuary. What they wanted was quiet and home from home and feel like they're in safety and luxury and peace. And they didn't care about 0 to 60 and statistics and how many gallons the fuel tank held. What they cared about was at 60 miles an hour, the loudest thing you could hear is the electric clock. And apparently there were two technicians around this board table who actually put together this whole the whole specification for the Silver Cloud. And when they whipped off the cloth to reveal the ad, right, at 60 miles an hour, the loudest noise you can hear is the electric clock. One of them turned to the other and says, "We've got to do something about that bloody clock," right? Which is like just so cool about Rolls-Royce's fascination with perfection. Anyway, that's not the story about this little lady here. I just thought I'd wanted to let you know the genius that he is. So normally we'll walk you through a model. We'll show you some thinking and some ways to think about leadership. But today we're not going to do that. A real break from tradition. We're going to talk about this Matrushka doll, or babushka doll, some people call it, like grandmother, I think, in Russian. Anyway, this is quite a dauber of a doll, you'll see. Here's the story. Ogilvy's was growing gangbusters, right? They were opening offices like every 5 minutes. New York, London, Rome, Paris, right? San Francisco, Singapore, Shanghai, like everywhere, right? They were the 800. They were becoming the 800-pound gorilla in the advertising marketing world. Not least because Ogilvy figured marketing out pretty well and employed people like him. But one of the things that he did was, whenever a new exec was appointed to the business in any of the offices around the world, Ogilvy had one of these delivered. So when there was a new executive starting with the company, first day of work, when they got to their desk, they would find one of these and a handwritten note from David Ogilvy. So first of all, nice move. Second of all, handwritten note, nice move. I hope you're taking this in. Handwritten note from David Ogilvy that said, please put this on your desk and keep it on your desk so that when I come round, I'll be at your office, like eventually, right? Because it's a big place, the world, and lots of offices, but put this on your desk. And when I come round to your office, the next time I'm in your office, I'll know that you're new and I'll come in and we'll have a chat. So everybody thought, oh, this is his kind of mechanism to signal that somebody is new, because they put it on their desk. When he went around the Shanghai office or the Singapore office or the San Francisco office, he would see these and go and say hello and talk to them, which of course is what he did. So think about that. Okay. He then went along and said hello and shook hands and says, you're new. How did you know? Because of this little thing here, rather large thing. And they would say yes, and he'd say, well, you got my gift, and they would say yes, and he said, well, let's talk about this gift. What he would then do, this might take me a while because this is a particularly big one. What he would then do, so bear with me as I do this, he would then unpack, right? So you know what these are, I'm sure. So he would take one of these and he would stick it over here, right? He would take the next one and he would stick it next to her here. I know these are going to disappear, but I'll pick them up for you in a minute. He would take this one, stick it next to it, over here. So we now have 3. He would take this one, stick it over here. He'd 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 take this one, yeah, I know, it's getting old, put it over here. He'd take this one, teeny tiny one, put it over here, and then he'd take this last one and put it over here. So now, you can't see it, but I'll hold them up. We have teeny tiny Matrushka doll, next to slightly bigger, next to slightly bigger, next to, they've all got different faces and different outfits, by the way. They all look, you think they're all the same, they're all different, hand painted, rather splendid. Straight from Moscow yesterday, right? You get the idea. He would lay them all out and he would say, okay, you're new to the company, welcome, you got my gift. Let's talk about it. He would unpack it, they'd all be like stacked there, and he would say to them, okay, what have all of these got to do with leadership? That was his question. I'm going to let that sit with you for a second. What have all of these got to do with leadership? Sometimes people would say, oh, okay, I get it. So we have our team, this is our team, this is me here, and these are my guys, and we're all a big team, and we're all part of the family, and we all like link and connect, and we're all like big and jolly and all of that kind of stuff. So I guess that's what it means, right? And he'd say, no, that's not it at all. Have another go. And they go, well, maybe they all look kind of alike, so they're all part and they're all branded and they're all the same, they're all slightly different, but they all look the same, but they're all slightly different, and everyone's unique. And you go, no, try again. Here was the point. The point of the story was, he said, this isn't you. This is you. This one is you. You're the leader, but this one is you. Your job isn't, this is you, and you make one of these slightly smaller than you, and another one slightly smaller than you, and another one slightly smaller than you, and another one. No, this is you. Your job is to make everyone bigger than you. If you're the leader, you're not this one, you're this one. Your job is not to go from here to here, it's to go from this is you to here. Your job is to make everybody bigger. So it talks nicely about how if this is you and your job is to make everybody bigger, and not this is you and you make everybody smaller, it's a nice view and it's a nice philosophy about leadership. Love it so much that we talk about it a lot, and that's how I'd like you, with entirely stolen it from the genius David Ogilvy, because it's just such a great story. If you're enjoying this and that kind of thought, we very much hope that, if you like that, then we've got something else perfect for you, hopefully. So if you also like learning through real life stories and history and all of that, if you're like us, we love uncovering wisdom from the past and bringing it into our own leadership practices. sharing these lessons with others. That's what we've done with our super duper book. We talk about these Russian dolls, by the way, in this book. So it's My Daily Leadership, a powerful roadmap for leadership success, and it's packed with just these kind of historical stories, right, and examples to help you not be this guy, but be this guy and make all of these guys, right? All interesting, I hope, all insightful, I hope, and inspiring, certainly, to help you apply to your leadership wisdom. So if that kind of seems like a groovy kind of thing for you, as groovy to you as it does to us, head over to mydailyleadership.com/book, or click the link in the description to get your hands on a copy. And before we return to Ogilvy in today's lesson, take some time to share your thoughts, questions, comments, aha moments, and all of that good stuff. Tell us if you've liked today's special story episode, and if you have, there's plenty more where that came from. An interesting story only has real value if we can actually figure out how to apply it. And I think there's a few things in here that you can think about. Not least, I think it talks about, I was talking to a client today, and we were doing some assessments where we were looking to help them, recruit the right people. We were talking about the principle that recruitment is a 3C assessment. It's about capability, chemistry, and credibility, and how do you measure for each of those things for the 3C assessment. Then I said, you know what? This is only as good as you can find the right candidates, but finding the right candidates to make them successful, that it's only going to be as good as is how do you onboard your people. And I think this is an example just of how Ogilvy onboarded their people, not only the gift but the handwritten note, but then taking personal time to talk to them about what the culture of the organization is like. It's just a microcosm. I don't know how Ogilvy onboarded new people into their organization. I bet it was pretty good, right? If this is what happened on day 1 or day 2, I imagine it's quite good. How well do you do that? I love the handwritten note. I love the stories. And Ogilvy didn't just say, hey, your job is to make bigger people like you. He found a way of making it very real and very visceral, a way that people can connect with, a way that had a daily visual reminder to everybody, because these were all over the place, right? He probably had shares in them. I'm teasing. Okay, so whatever your reason for listening or watching today, just think about how can I apply some of those lessons, right? I hope, as usual, we're giving you something of value today, something interesting, an aha moment. Remember, there's immense power in marginal gains. Let's just try and get better, just 1% every day, but every day, which is why we want you to journal, get a coach, and all of that good stuff. Please, there's power in community too. Share your questions, insights, and topics and suggestions. If you're watching on YouTube, and whilst you're down there, give this video a like and subscribe too. You know you want to, right? Share and all of that good stuff. So for our auditory learners, well, you're only getting half the story because I keep holding things up to the camera and you don't know what they are, right? And it's these dolls. So even if you don't do it for any other episode, please do it for this one, because I think it's a fairly visual description, explanation that we're going through today. So, by the way, we normally have a model that we download. They're complimentary. There isn't one today, but please do go over to www.mydailyleadership.com/podcast, and you'll see all of the models that we have used and designed and developed just for you guys, even though there isn't one today. In the next episode, we're tackling what we call the leadership double trouble, how leaders manage their own work-life balance whilst also helping to guide their teams through the same challenges. So it's work-life balance, it's stress, it's all of that good stuff, burnout and all of that. I'm Antonio Garrido, My Daily Leadership. From me and the dolls and everybody else here at My Daily Leadership, thanks for being here, thanks for tuning in. Until next time, by wisdom and effort, by the time I stack these all up again, it'll be time for another episode. See you next time.